Tuesday night fever, chasing dreams in the night. Heavy runs dropping like thunder on the street. Summer's close, can you feel that heat? CFL camps, waking sweat and hope collide. Argos holding trophies, will they keep their pride? Snoop's on the mic, BC's crowds alive. Home openers blazing, the city's set to thrive. Hop on this bus, we don't know where we're going. Legends and ghosts, the wild winds blowing. Raise up your glass, let the games begin. We're chasing the night, let the wild ride spin. Stamp's got the fire, QB's in the room, trying to shake off last year's gloom. People's waiting, will the hall let him in? History's knocking, let the story begin. Hop on this bus, we don't know where we're going. Legends and ghosts, the wild winds blowing. Raise up your glass, let the games begin. We're chasing the night, let the wild ride spin. Bridge trump's got a plane, but we got the us, rolling through the chaos on this midnight bus. Don't look back, just ride the unknown. With every new season, we're never alone. Hop on this bus, we don't know where we're going. Legend and ghosts, the wild winds blow. Raise up your glass, let the games begin. Encasing the night, let the wild ride spin. So here's to the dreamers, the champs and the lost. Every late Tuesday, no matter the cost, the ride begins anew, the story rolls on. With 300-pound rounds, we'll keep singing this song.
And Nasty. Host Randy Chevrier and Sheldon Napashka guide you through great stories that spark great conversations. Two really big guys talking a big game. The boys are locked in and ready to go. Welcome to The Ride.
The Ride. It's Tuesday night. I'm Chevy. He's Nasty. This is The Ride with Chevy and Nasty, brought to you by Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media, YYC Business. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Sheldon. How's it going?
It's another week, another Tuesday night. We made it, and that's all that matters, Chev.
Yeah, sometimes we make it with our pants on, and sometimes, as Bruno likes to point out, we got no pants. It's the 75th episode of The Ride with Chevy and Nasty, and for 75, for a few weeks there, it was a little barren. We got a lot of offensive lineman numbers. We had some slim pickings. And not to say that offensive linemen are bad, but not everyone remembers offensive linemen. And those 60s numbers, not the greatest numbers for memorable players. Not the worst, but not, it's just you start getting back into the exciting numbers when you hit the 70s. And for the 75th episode, we got a couple of good ones up here. Trey, throw up our little graphic. So who do we got? Like right in the middle there, Mean Joe Green. And obviously in football, defensive line, it's 70s are a defensive line number historically. Sheldon, did you follow Mean Joe Green back in the day?
You know what? I remember that iconic commercial with him in the tunnel with the kid and the Coke. Always dreamt of, meeting a guy like that one day. But I think, what years did he play? I think he was a little bit before us, wasn't he? Was he
Yeah.
in the 70s, or did he play in the 80s?
I knew the name, but I don't know the body of work. Just like, I know Deacon Jones is there as a number 75, famous NFL, Forrest Gregg, all these great defensive tackles and offensive tackles. Jonathan Ogden was there.
Well, what about Keith Millard? Or Keith Millard wasn't he? Or Howie Long? What number was he? That might have. I'm going to have to check that. We don't have to slow it down. But
Howie Long might be coming up. I'm not sure if Howie Long was 75. Maybe one of our intrepid fans could tell us. But Vincent Wilfork, he was a great 75 for the New England Patriots, and won a bunch of Super Bowls. But I don't know who that Leafs guy is. Trey always throws me in like who's 75 for the Leafs up there? Trey, who do you got up there? Like, he just throws us these guys, these random guys, without even so much of a Ryan Reeves.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. Ryan.
You know what? You know what gets me about that is he did pass over both Keith Millard for the Minnesota Vikings and Howie Long with the Oakland Raiders. They were both number 75, and we've got Ryan Reeves.
See, I don't know Keith Millard, but I definitely know Howie Long, and then but the most Trey says not random as well. Ryan Reeves, he's okay, but he's not going to be a memorable 75. He's a NHL 75 right now. He's a good fighter, but like he's not. I don't even think he's playing right now. Is he playing? Are the Leafs using? He's not even with the Leafs anymore, is he? He's done. I don't know. I remember him as a Golden Knight, and then he went to Toronto. But let's get to the man that we want to talk about, the great 75, close to home. We all know who he is. A lot of people mentioned him. One of the best Stews ever, Stu Laird. Great Hall of Fame. Calgary Stampeders. I believe he was born in Saskatchewan, Sheldon. So he's actually a Sasky boy.
Well, do you know where he's from? I never knew that he was a Saskatchewan. I'm not surprised. Like that mustache alone and that tough style of play that he had. Of course, he's
Assiniboia.
There you go.
How far is that from? How far is that from North Battleford on a map?
That's a ways. I think it's southern Saskatchewan. If I remember correctly, I'm not that up on my southern Saskatchewan geography anymore, but I think it's somewhere in the south.
Fair enough. But made his way to Calgary, started with the UFC Dinos, and then went on to great fame with the Stampeders. I think he played from 1984 to 96, so a 12-year football career. Won a Grey Cup, I believe 95 was it, or 92? They won the Grey Cup.
Yep, 92.
And he's won the Tom Pate Award, President's Ring winner 3 times, and we talked about that, how prestigious that is. He's on the Stampeders Wall of Fame. His number 75 has been retired. I mean, he is Mr. Calgary. I mean, while he played, he was a full-time firefighter. He was sort of one of the reasons I got into the fire department, because he had been talking it up to me for a number of years closer to my retirement, but it wasn't until I sat in his office downtown Calgary and he said, listen, now that you're interested, I want to let you know. He's like, every firefighter you speak to will say this is the greatest job in the world, which is true. Every firefighter I met up until that point said this is the greatest job. It's the greatest job. And he said, I'm going to tell you everything that's wrong with this job, and then you can have a great balance and information to make your decision. And I thought that was really one. It's telling of the man and the leader he is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And just how the mentorship that he gave me in that moment. And I didn't speak to Stu too much, like I spoke to him a few times, but we would see each other at events, alumni events. But when you're playing, the alumni do their thing and you kind of in and out. But the number of times I spoke to him, he was always awesome. I knew what a presence he had in Calgary, but in that moment, I just felt he imparted some amazing wisdom to me. And I texted him today, actually. I said, Stu, we got our 75th episode. I don't expect you to come on, because he wakes up at 4:30 in the morning still. He still works downtown. Oh, really? Yeah, he's long retired from the fire department, retired a couple of years ago as bat chief, but he's always worked full-time in the fire department, worked in the oil and gas, and he goes up every morning, gets up 4:30, goes, does his workout, then he works. But yeah, when I spoke to him today, he remembered speaking to me, and I asked him, I said, what was your proudest moment? And for him was winning that Grey Cup in 92 after a 21-year Grey Cup drought. And I said, did you have a best play or something you remembered? And right there, he said, a few stick out, but nothing beat playing and battling with his teammates. And he was a beloved teammate for sure.
Yeah. Well, what do you got here for us, Trey?
What was Trey got?
Oh, they would beat the Bombers in 92. There you go. Yeah, well, while that's going on, I'll tell you what. There's 2 things that really stick out about that. One, his text back. Honestly, he was just going to battle with the boys, right? Yeah. Like for me, when I look back, and I don't have Grey Cups. I didn't have. He got 1 at least. But, I like that kind of approach where it's just like, you know what I miss? I miss the combat. I miss the battling with the guys, lining up. And the second thing, though, honestly, giving you that feedback, when you first come out of professional football, everybody's trying to sell you on something. Hey, you got to get into this. Why don't you come support us on this? You'd be great at this. I like that he gives you that honest, straight goods. He was a hell of a leader. He must have been an amazing captain to play under. Amazing teammate to say, listen, I'm going to talk you out of this. And once you hear this, if you still want to go forward, I got your back and I'm going to help you along. I mean, that's the kind of advice you would almost expect from an alumni, a guy that went through the same path that you did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And having been through one organization that he went and blazed the trail through and seen the impact he had, with the Stampeders, and then now working for the Calgary Fire Department where he's been through that organization and blazed the trail as a leader. The respect that this man has is just unbelievable. Like especially in the fire service where you could always find people who are willing to spread a rumor or say something about someone just for the sake of saying it. Stu is almost beyond reproach, right? And I remember someone who was it? I can't remember, but someone said, you mentioned the mustache at the beginning. And it was a female, and she said to me, she said, "Oh, I hate mustaches, but I saw him. He looks good in a mustache."
Yeah.
And
Like Tom
he
Selleck.
does.
Certain guys could pull it off, right?
Yeah, and he's such a superhero. I think even one year the Stamps program was him as a superhero. I think when he retired, he had the most sacks of any Canadian defensive lineman at that time. I think now he's third on the list, and I think he's third on the Stampeders all-time list for sacks. So,
Yeah.
for a Canadian player to make that type of impact on the game the way he did for as many years as he did, and then as president of the CFL Players Association, like I said, worked his way up to the rank of bat chief in the fire department. Pretty impressive resume. Big shoes to fill for anyone that plays D-line with the Stamps as Canadian, as you probably felt. Did you feel a little bit of, when you're a Canadian D-lineman playing for the Stamps, do you always feel like that? Well, Stu's the guy.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's you can't help but feel that. You're always living up to somebody's shoes or boots out there on the field. And Stu Laird is an absolute legend. You go anywhere in Calgary, even today, if there's one defensive lineman in this city that still gets talked about, that everybody knows, has met, has good things to say, it's Stu Laird.
Oh yeah,
that's a Chevy. I'm not sure, and I can
Yeah.
tell he's had an impact on you. And we could probably keep going on him. I don't think we've
Yeah.
ever talked for 10 minutes on a number before. Stu
Well-
is definitely worth it. But
Yeah.
you know what? You took this time to write this poem.
Yeah.
Why don't we kick this thing off with a little bit of Chevy's very own 300-pound poetry? Trey, cue the music.
And now, 300-pound poetry with Chevy and Nasty.
Like every late Tuesday night, with 300-pound rhymes that don't always sound quite right.
Summer's around the corner as it's the beginning of CFL camps. When this season ends, will the Argos remain the champs?
I don't know. To kick things off in style, it's the D-O-double-G as Snoop performs the home opener live for the fans in BC.
The Stamps have a QB room that's the envy of most. Can they start fresh this season? Can they chase out last year's ghosts?
Speaking of ghosts, Pete Rowe, they finally get the call after years of being banned. And he finally get into the hall.
Well, Trump gets a plane, and you all get us. We don't know where this bus is going, but beware if you join us. Oh, I screwed that one up bad.
I thought you were going to change your line.
I was trying to. I forgot where I was going with it.
You
but,
forgot midway. Yeah, no, lots going on this week. We spent a lot of time on one Stu. We might as jump to the other Stu that's been in the news in Alberta, and that's Stu Skinner. We're talking about the Edmonton Oilers, the resurgent Edmonton Oilers, after a very tough. Troy pulled it up early. We're queuing it up here. After a very tough opening 2 games in LA, it just seems like the Oilers have been cruising. But part of that cruising was the switch from Stu Skinner, their goaltender, to Calvin Pickard. But he got hurt. He got hurt on Sunday. And it looked like the Oilers relapsed. Or Saturday, excuse me.
Yeah, Friday night. I in fact, when I turned out, I had no idea. I was out and about, lots going on Saturday. I get back, throw on the TV, and Skinner's in net. Like I had no idea. And they said, I thought, well, are they trying to get him back in the rotation? They give him another start. No, Pickard was actually injured, and I still don't know when or how he got injured exactly. But I'll tell you what, I know this has been probably the most popular topic on a Calgary-based show, but I think any Oiler fan that's out there was sitting there just, just pooping their pants a little bit that Skinner's going to be going back in net, and what's this going to mean? We're on such a hot run. I was nervous. Like, I knew it could go one of two ways because he was amazing in the playoffs last year, but he's never found his form this entire year. You're hopeful, but you're like covering your eyes through that entire thing.
Yeah. Now, Trey, don't get me wrong. Like, maybe correct me. Was the oopsie game on Friday or Saturday?
That was Saturday, I think.
But then when did they win? Did they win
last night?
Yesterday? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, yeah, because I watched the game on Thursday. That's right. Then I watched Saturday. Yeah, so Saturday was crazy game. Crazy game. You thought it was going to go their way. I mean, listen, I'm not an Oilers fan during the season. Yeah, thanks, Trey. I kind of messed up my dates because today's Tuesday, but not an Oilers fan during the season. I'm not a Flames fan, but I want them to play well. It's the playoffs. Like I said, I'm pulling for the Canadian team. Still having a hard time getting on the Leafs bandwagon, even though they're doing okay. But the Oilers, because they're close to home, my girlfriend cheers for them. I like the players on their team. I like Connor McDavid. I like Draisaitl. They're fun to watch when they're on, but they sure are tough to cheer for when they look bad. And, going back to those first two games in LA, 12 goals in 2 games, you don't expect that from the defending runner-up Stanley Cup champions going back for a run. And here they are right back in the driver's seat. And that game on Saturday was exciting, except the end.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, it was. But, here's the thing, though. It was so bad this year if you're an Oilers fan, that the entire year I basically stopped watching games. I kept track of the record. They were tough to watch. They never got the goaltending they needed. They never got the scoring at the right time. They never got secondary scoring. Yet you wanted to believe in the back of your mind that in that magical playoff situation where the guys will start finding their game again, even though they hadn't really shown it all year long. And I think what we're seeing right now is a case where you've got 2 solid goaltenders right now. I mean, Pickard looked fine. He looked good. I mean, he's carried him for 5? You're getting secondary scored. Corey Perry scored 2.
Yeah, he scored a couple. Yeah, he scored a couple on Saturday night's game to kick it off, and we're like, oh, this is going well. But you know what? The Saturday night game, what I was mad about wasn't that the Oilers lost. It's that I was robbed of overtime. If there's one thing I like more than playoff hockey, is I love playoff overtime, because it just seems like a little bit of extra goodness, extra drama. And that 0.4 seconds on the clock, where Draisaitl kind of tipped it in his own net as he tried to sweep the puck away, deprived me of some exciting hockey. But that being said, the rebound happened last night, and the Oilers absolutely dominated the Golden Knights. In fact, it was a hit parade on Alex Pietrangelo. They absolutely destroyed him. And I thought, what a great bounce back. And of course, we talked so highly of Stu Laird before, and Stu Skinner, in one moment it could sound like they're booing him, and in one moment they could sound like they're cheering for Stu, and you don't know what it is. But yesterday they definitely were cheering his name. A nice bit of redemption for him, right? Because again, after that LA series, if Pickard doesn't get hurt, his goose is cooked. Would you agree?
Yeah, but the same thing, absolutely. But the same thing happened last year. He had a rough stretch against, I think it was the Canucks. He actually got pulled, right? And what they're saying is that the Oilers have been looking for an opportunity to get him back in. Pickard's great. He's doing a good job. But if you're going to go and if you're going to advance through this, you really need your best to be at their best. And we need to see Skinner rebound. And I mean, knock on wood, he looked dialed in last night. Right from the start, he didn't face a ton of shots, but he faced some tough situations, some pucks that were handcuffing him. His position he held, he just looked like he's found his confidence and found his game. On the other end of the ice, Aiden Hill's been like tremendous for the Golden Knights. But did you see that time? And I'm going to get your opinion on this. When Evander Kane, after the goal, and Evander Kane gets kind of pushed into the goalie, his hands are up, and he kind of flops on Hill. Hill gets up, chases him down, looks like he wants to fight him. Did you get a chance to see that live?
I didn't see that live because I was coaching football, but that's been par for the course of the NHL playoffs this year. I mean, every goalie's been run.
What do you make of that? Was that one of those? Oh, oops, and I'm going to drop all my weight on the guy accidentally on purpose. I'm sorry, or was that because he got the penalty on that one?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Actually, you know what? I did see that one. Yeah, like he bumped. Actually, no, the one that I saw, I think was the one when Zach Hyman went across and hit him in the head. I think Hyman had hit him with his butt. But yeah, like this playoffs, goalies have been getting run. If you look at Stolars in Toronto, you look at what happened in the Montreal Capitals series. I believe it also happened in Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Goalies have been getting run, and normally they're protected, but this year it doesn't seem like they got that protection. But that's part of the gamesmanship. And a guy like Evander Kane, that's exactly what the Oilers needed. We talked about Ryan Reeves before. Some teams have a guy like Ryan Reeves that his job is to bust shit up and to fight. The Capitals have a pretty talented guy like that with Tom Wilson that can score goals. He plays on the top line. He gets top line minutes. But other teams like the Oilers don't have that guy. And unless a guy like they got, Oilers got two different guys. They got Corey Perry, who's kind of a shit disturber in front of the net. He's a bit of a rat. He knows how to play that role, draw penalties, be a rat. But then you got Evander Kane that's got that high level talent. I'd venture to say he's probably top 3 talent in the Oilers if they didn't have even the Nuge, but he's got that extra level of sandpaper to his game, and when he brings it, he's a force. He's a force,
and you need that. You need that in the playoffs if you're going to advance. Listen, I think we're going to go to break here, guys. So this is a time where you can all get up and grab a quick snack, grab a drink, do what you got to do. Don't forget to check us out on all of our socials. You can find us on all the platforms. I'm not sure where this ride's going, but I think CFL training camp's in gear, and we're going to take maybe a bit of a trip down memory lane and take a look at what's going on in Stampederland. All this coming up after the break.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
Welcome back to the ride with Chevy and Nasty Performance Freight Management, Weedrone Real Estate Media, and YYC Business sponsor the show. Sheldon, just before we move on, a couple of things. Next week, we're going to be into the, we'll put a bow on the NHL. We're going to be into round 2. I think we're already both on the same page. We're predicting and hoping for the Oilers to be there next week to talk about. Dallas has a pretty commanding lead on the Jets. Leafs and Florida are tied, and Carolina, I believe, is 3 games to 1 to the Hurricanes. So I guess the question for you, I guess the one that seems the most pressing right now is, are we going to see the Leafs advance is that game going to Game 7 against the Florida Panthers. That's kind of the most one that's in contention. Is that what you're hoping for? Leafs?
Yeah. I have a hard time, and I'm sorry to all you Leafs fans out there. I know Ernie's a big Leafs fan. We have others. I have a hard time pulling for the Leafs. That said, I was trying to figure out what the NHL would want to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the it's possible that this is the year that we see two Canadian teams in the finals, right? It's possible
that would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
It would be for us. It might even be a nation builder, East versus West, and kind of get behind that rivalry. But if you're the NHL, would you rather see a small market Florida team or the Maple Leafs advance? Like, what do you think Bettman wants to see?
Yeah, I don't know. Florida won last year, and we've seen a lot of the American teams, but I think, like, for me as a casual baseball fan, and I know Bruno's a big baseball fan, but when the Yankees played the Dodgers this past year, it caught my attention. You know what I mean? Like, it caught my attention. I'm not a baseball, and I assume it caught my attention for the historic reasons that they brought up at the time, that made the drama and made the matchup more poignant. I would assume that if you're a hockey fan and maybe even a casual sports fan, if you hear that this is the first time in I don't know how many years that we'd have a Stanley Cup final with two Canadian teams, and the Leafs haven't won since the 60s, and there's so much, and the greatest player in the world, actually the two greatest players arguably in the world, facing off against each other between Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid. I gotta believe that's good for the NHL. That's good eyeballs.
You know what I'm thinking, though? There's a lot of Leafs fans out there, or teams that are cheering for the Canadian teams. You talk about Matthews. He's not playing like a great right now. Like, he hasn't shown the ability to take the team on his back. And I don't know, there's some rumors out there that maybe he's injured, more banged up than he appears. Maybe he's just, but I mean, he's never gotten them to advance in any of his years there. Is he the guy? I'll tell you what, if he is the guy, this is going to be his time to turn this around, take it on his shoulders, and show what he's got.
Yeah.
We'll see what David did it last year, and Draisaitl at times. You got to have your best players step up and become the stars and the legends. That, or you're just going to be another team that advanced to round 2, and nobody really remembers you after that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens next week. Guys, just a reminder, next week is our men's mental health movie night at the Cochrane Movie House, and we are sold out. We're officially sold out, Sheldon. We had all of you guys listening and guys all around RSVP to the event. We just announced last week Brent Cron is going to be one of our speakers. We obviously have Brett Gardner, who was there last year, and great mental health performance coach, Hall of Fame rodeo announcer. Sheldon's going to be talking as well. Daryl and myself, we're going to try and guide the ship a little bit, but it is going to be a fantastic night, guys. Food, film, fellowship, fireside chats, and then obviously the movie that we're going to be watching at the end of the night, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, featuring Tom Cruise. I'm really excited for the evening, but also want to send a huge shout out to all the sponsors that have been up there. Like, if you post this, I don't know if Trey's got the graphic up, I sent it to you, but the amount of sponsors we have that are still pouring in. We just had another one the other day, Integra Tire. We got WestJet, ATB, John Bender, Game Day. Man, look at that. All these sponsors to help us put this night on, to sponsor some of the prizing and the silent auction items we're having. And guys, it's a free night, as we said. But if you do, last year we had people coming in saying, hey, we want to donate to you guys. Well, we're not taking donations, but we decided to support a great foundation, and that's the Ty Posabon Foundation. Ty was a tough as nails rodeo competitor. He passed away tragically at 25 years old. Complications with CTE, and his foundation donates to CTE research, concussion rehabilitation for rodeo athletes, and then again studying and mental health supports for these athletes. So if you do feel so inclined to bring a couple of bucks or to put your name on one of our silent auction items, this is where any money any extra money, once we cover the costs, once we cover the food, once we cover the film, once we cover everything, any extra is going straight to the Ty Posenbaum Foundation. It's a great cause, and we can do this because you're all showing up, and it's going to be an awesome night.
I didn't even think about that with the, I'm inspired by what you just said. I think I'm going to throw in a free headshot portrait session. Why not a free one, but like donate that to the cause.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I can easily do with WeDrone. So yeah, absolutely. It's
That's
awesome
good.
to hear. I like seeing the combination of big names and some local guys. I love the fact that it's still growing. You know what that means? It's a movement. Last year we had 100 people capacity,
and 100 people. Now we're 200,
and we had 100 people show up. This year we got 200 people, and we got 200 people show up.
and we got a wait list. Like, that's the other thing. We got guys that just didn't click RSVP soon enough, and unfortunately we just couldn't accommodate everyone, and we're gonna
Hal's gonna have to build a bigger theater in Cochrane for next year.
That's what's gonna happen, but it's great. So moving on from that, we're not in full swing, but CFL training camps started last week. Guys reporting for duty started with the rookies the week before. But on the weekend, the real deal showed up. I believe today, the Stampeders did their first hitting practice, and tonight they already got to cut down to 75 people, which means about 15 guys that were here last year, maybe signed in the offseason, get their walking papers. Sheldon, when you think back to training camp, what are some of your most positive memories? And then let's talk about some of our most negative memories. I don't want to break down the teams because we don't even know half the guys that are there, but
no,
you and I have been here before. When you anticipated training camp each year, you circle it on your calendar, hey babe, I'm leaving town. I'm gone for 2 weeks. What were you looking forward to and what were you dreading?
I don't think there's a whole lot that I was looking forward to except for the opportunity. Those early days when you knew what you were up against. Like, I don't know how you felt in your first training camp. I had no idea where I ranked with these guys. That insecurity, that first time you go to training camp with pros, and you got the one side of you that's like, dude, I was like sweet in college. Hey, I played in the Big 12. Randy, you got invited down to the to the East-West or the North-South or one of the big bowl games that not many Canadians got to go to, but you don't know where you stand.
Yeah.
And so I just remember is almost the 2 weeks, the week leading up to it, and then the sleeplessness the last 2 nights as you get into town. Because for the young guys, I mean, it's all your hopes and dreams are lined up at that moment. You don't know where you stand. You don't know if you're professional, have the professional pedigree to carry on, but you sure hope you do. And then when you get there, at that point, it's just work, a whole lot of soreness, a whole lot of pain, a whole lot of egos, a whole lot of talkers. But over the 2-3 weeks of camp, it's kind of just sorts itself out.
Yeah, no, I agree. For me, not the first camp. The first camp was definitely different than all the rest.
Your first camp was an NFL camp, though.
Yeah, I was in the NFL. I had been through mini camp with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I knew that I had to show up doing a 300-yard shuttle as a rookie to pass. And Tom Coughlin, one of the legendary.
Oh, that's a tough coach. That's a tough coach for a first training camp.
Yeah, angry coaches. You're going to training camp going against Tony Baselli. And, just that name alone, struck fear into guys' hearts. And then you got running backs like Fred Taylor and all these guys. And, yeah, just it was a little over my head, having come from McGill and then going to an NFL training camp, not really understanding just how intense it is. But then as I settled and I got into the CFL, my big thing was every year, I trained pretty hard. I always felt like I needed one more week. I just needed one more week. I always felt like, and it didn't matter if I had that one more week, I always felt like I needed one more week because I want to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then, once you get there, you kind of settle into your role. And, the things I looked forward to was, just thinking about football, 24/7 for those couple of weeks and not having to think about anything else. It was kind of like, is really in a weird way, a break from reality, because that's not real. No one gets to play a sport for 24/7. They get to do it on the field twice a day. They get to watch it on film. No one gets.
Are
to
you
do
saying
that.
you actually, so you liked camp? Because I remember differently. I remember, the first day was awesome. You get banged up. Oh, the next day you're bruised, right? But you go out there and you battle. Day 3, the soreness sets in,
Yeah.
right? Like you're never sore the next day. It's day 3. But the worst day was day 4. And I still remember day 4 where I couldn't lift my knees. I remember the way that my hip flexors felt. I felt like maybe I wasn't trained quite as well as you, because you were, Mr. Johnny Football, right? You trained harder than anybody else that was out there. I relied on my raw skill, good looks, charisma on the field to kind of get me by, my sweet little, hand pass, my swim move. I remember day 4 and day 5 just being the worst feeling ever. And it felt like whatever shape I was in, I hurt on day 4. In fact, you know what? I remember the year that scarred me the most was my second year with the Calgary Stampeders. Matt Dunnigan, absolute legend in the CFL, great broadcaster, came on as our head coach and general manager of the Calgary Stampeders.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, he was dynamic, he was fun, motivating, but he didn't know anything about what players' bodies were going through. We got rained out, and so the grass fields were all off limits. So we had full padded practices on the turf. We started off training camp with 4 or 5 nose tackles. By day 5, we were down to 1.
Well, and let's bear in mind that turf
That
you're
was
talking
me.
about, your turf you're talking about was AstroTurf.
AstroTurf.
It was
I think
the field turf. Yeah.
I think not only did that take years off of my career, I think that training camp took years off of my life. There was guys injured, so many injuries. Every now and then they would spell off a defensive end to come get me out of there. We were running a 3-4 defense. But I'd be doing both like our main defense, and I was also running scout team. It was ridiculous. I could not believe it. It was the most ridiculous camp I'd ever been a part of. That was my worst memory of training camp.
And training camp really in those days, and I've heard it's changed, right? They wear the Guardian caps. They're severely limited in the amount of full contact practice. Like we're talking about, when we went through camps, it was like 2 weeks of 2-a-days. Like especially when I was in the NFL, it was a 4-week training camp, and it was 3 weeks of 2-a-days. You might have got 1 or 2 days where you got a 1-a-day sprinkled in there. But back in our day, hitting was like, you remember they used to say, you hit so much the first 2 weeks of camp to get your head ready to take on the hits during the season, right? Like soften you up. Like,
do you believe that though?
No.
What's your event? Once you play professional for a few years, you're coming out of a major college program, you've been starting for years. Do you really have to bang your way through training camp?
But it's the one-time coaches in the pros at least, and where they can get human beings to act out all the things and scenarios that they drew on napkins and papers in the offseason, and we're the pawns in that little game of chess. And that's really what it is, because there's so many things in training camp that kind of don't translate. Like one-on-ones are important because one-on-ones can determine if you can beat a guy straight up, but they're not realistic.
Work and there's exactly.
But they're not realistic because in a game there's all kinds of things happening, and offensive linemen got to focus on a lot of different things besides just the guy in front of them. And same with defensive linemen. And in this situation, the offensive lineman has the advantage. He could short set you, deep set you, and it doesn't totally translate into the game. And then inside run. When in a football game are you going to have 15 run plays in a row? So the advantage of down and distance and doing different things gets taken away. And in training camp, you just like your body is beat down. Now, going into camp, I was looking forward to just focusing on football, but just like you, Sheldon, it was grueling. They called it the dog days of camp. And, in Stampederland in Calgary, they had the very famous tradition that when you just almost couldn't handle it anymore, George Hopkins would throw on the Black Betty, and it'd be Black Betty Day for the full day straight. And you guys got to understand, like Black Betty Day is you get into the locker room at 7 a.m, and Black Betty is just ripping as loud as possible on the stereo. You go on the field, it's playing as loud as possible in the loudspeaker. You go in the meeting rooms, the lunch rooms, Black Betty is playing all day. Now, when you played Sheldon, did he have just the one song, or did he have like
when I first got there, he had the one song, but by the
Yeah.
time I was out of there, there's 3 different versions, including I'm pretty sure an electronic remix of the song. But
the Tom Jones was my favorite. Tom Jones was my favorite. There was a Tom Jones remix. Yeah,
dude, I try not to listen. I don't know who did the different versions, and I try not to go back there. But it felt like SEAL Team 6 during your Hell Week when you're in training and they're just trying to run guys off and ring the bell. That's Black Betty Day. The rumor
for me, Sheldon, I was that guy that everyone hated because for me,
like,
every time,
oh, Black Betty,
yes, every time I heard it start again, it was like the first time. But that's how I run on the treadmill. I just tricked myself into believing that, you know what, I can make it. That's how I did it. I just sang the song like it was the first time. But you're about to give us the rumor of how it started.
Well, apparently it was Gio's move to take back the sound system, because the other problem with training camp is you've got 100 guys, some that belong, some that don't. Everybody's trying to belong, but everybody's got their trying to take control of the stereo system. Gio's just trying to run, and no doubt at all who runs the locker room with the Calgary Stampeders. Gio Hopkins, legendary Hall of Fame equipment manager, for sure is in charge. What I was told at the time was this was Gio's chance to reconfirm whose locker room that was and playing his favorite song from back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like Ready Day, CFL. Well, it's coming. It's coming. Those guys are in it. So we're not going to break down the camps. It's a little bit early, but let's just talk about some of the things we touched about in the poem. One thing we talked about in the poem is the CFL season kicks off. Are the Argos the dead-on favorite to repeat as Grey Cup champs, or do you see someone that may have slipped, may have stumbled last year, but is actually the team to beat? Who would that be for you if it's not the Argos, or is it the Argos?
I think for me, I mean, out of the East, you got to kind of go with the Argos, but that's a weird one, right? Is it Nick Arbuckle or is it what's his name? The
Chad,
guy, Chad. I'm trying to say Chad Mayfrom, but that's a little Kansas State guy. But whatever.
Kelly.
It's Kelly. Yeah. Jim Kelly's nephew. For me, I'm curious to see if the Saskatchewan Roughriders can take us to the next step this year. But to do that, they're going to have to get past the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who another year older, right? But they've still got some good pieces there. So I don't know. And then there's the side of you that hopes, having Vernon Adams Jr. as a quarterback of the Stamps, maybe he was a missing piece that rejuvenates this club.
Well, I was going to ask you that next. We talk about the Stamps putting away the ghosts. And, when I wrote the poem, I was actually going to say, can they put, the past the ghost of Jake Mayer, the Jake Mayer's ghost, because, they went from Bo Levi Mitchell. They handed the reins to Jake Mayer, and the Stamps don't hand the reins over very often, right? Like very few QB shifts in the last number of years. You talk about Henry Burris, Drew Tate, Bo Levi Mitchell, there was Kevin Glenn in there, and then that's it. And that's a very small group of guys. If you look at other teams like Saskatchewan, you look at BC, you look at Montreal, you look at Ottawa, lots of movement at that position. Calgary's been pretty stable. So when they give it to someone, they're usually pretty sure with Huffnagel and Dave there, but they obviously missed on that evaluation. And I mean, proof is in the pudding. Jake Mayer's no longer here. But it looks like, do you think they got it right? Like Vernon Adams is an exciting signing, and PJ Walker right behind him.
I think for sure they've got it right. I think it's going to add a whole new energy, and even it's going to add some belief to even the impact that'll have on returning defensive players. To know that we're going for a dynamic offense, and we're making the commitment to it. But at the end of the day, we couldn't see what we had at the receiving core. Were they soft? Did they have issues? I know we had a lot of injuries throughout that core, but do we have the receiving core to make something of Vernon Adams? Are we just going to waste him? Do we have the playbook that will balance, a dynamic ground game to buy him time to do what he does best, which is play action, roll out of the pocket, and use that big arm of his as well? I mean, we're just going to have to see. I have no idea what this iteration of the Stampeders are going to look like. But I'll tell you what, the first time in 4 years, I'm kind of excited to see what they got.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I just have that throw a little bit of caution to the wind. Vernon Adams was definitely the biggest signing. We knew he was on the move from BC last year when they threw all that money to Nathan Rourke. But were the Stampeders' problems bigger than just a quarterback? And that's tough to evaluate, right? They lost a bunch of linebackers. They lost some key guys in different positions. Mike Alway went to BC. Cam Judge goes to Toronto. They signed Fraser Sopik, who had a great season in Toronto, but then he goes and retires. So,
I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, I'm excited to see what Vernon Adams can do because I saw what he could do at other teams. But can the Stampeders be the team they need to be with just that change? Or do they got to step it up in other areas? And, they made some coaching changes. We saw, Mark Killam be released and only to reserve as the Edmonton Elks head coach. They brought in Craig Dickinson.
Which in itself makes me nervous, though, right? Because it seems like everybody that the Stamps have let go in the last 4 years have ended up on a Grey Cup winning or have just had like stellar years. So
well, and that being said, like when I look at who I think coming out might be the team, Toronto could be the easy one to pick just because, they won the Grey Cup with their backup quarterback. I would have gone and said the Alouettes have a real strong opportunity because you know what? They were one little slip up away from winning last year.
But do you see James is calling you out on the Bo Levi train? Are you stepping off that train this year?
No, well, this is where I was heading. I was like, I don't know if the Alouettes come back hard, with the switch at quarterback. If Cody Fajardo was there, I think he rallies the troops. I don't know what the young cat in Montreal is, but that's also why they signed McLeod Bethel Thompson. But the team for me that I believe is trending upward and is gonna make a major push is the Bo Levi Mitchell led Hamilton Tiger Cats. I believe that Bo will win another Grey Cup. I thought it was going to be like right out the gates in Hamilton, but he had some injury issues. But he looked good last year. He looked good last year late, and if he has if he had a good off season, there's not much change there in Hamilton in terms of him. He's the guy. He's back. There's not a new quarterback. There's not an injured quarterback. There's not I don't think there's a potential controversy in Toronto. But what do you do when one guy won you a Grey Cup in such a commanding performance? It's like the Stuart Skinner Pickard issue that the Oilers had. What do you do if you're Toronto Argonauts going into the season?
You know what you're doing. It's one game, and you got to go with your lead actor in this one. Although very grateful to have a guy like Arbuckle that can rise up. But back to Hamilton, I do agree with you. I think we're going to see some great things out of Hamilton. They're not going to win many games, but Bo Levi is going to throw a lot of garbage yards at the end of blowouts. And
that's so you're not a Bo Levi fan. I am.
I celebrate winning games. But Chev, I think we're kind of up against the clock here. So let me ask you the last. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to ask you one more thing.
One
more thing. Well, we're going to have to talk about this because we mentioned this too in the poem about CFL. BC Lions made big news today. Snoop Dogg announced as the opening act for the home opener. Last year was 50 cent.
50 cent.
This year, are the BC Lions doing it right and everyone else doing it wrong or not doing it? Now, all this to say, the Stamps made some major moves with the Stampede game and Brett Michaels poison? Is it Brett Michaels?
Yeah.
Showing up for that game on July 3rd. I'm excited for that. I'm going to try and get to that game. That's one I'm circling on my calendar. But what do you make of this, Sheldon? Snoop Dogg, is that a big deal? Like, is that going to get the youth?
It's a big deal. I mean, you saw him at the Olympics. He's the face of Team America at next year's Olympics. Snoop is still a big thing. I'm actually thinking about using my WestJet privileges and flying down and catching that game. Chev, I'll get you a buddy pass if you want to join me.
I think that'd be great.
That's a big move. I think hopefully, if anything, what that does is inspires other cities to recognize what they can do to bring out the crowds. Great move by BC, and I'm excited about what are they calling it? The Stampede Bowl. What are we calling it here in Calgary?
The Stampede Bowl. Yeah, versus
I'm excited about that. Well done. I'm glad to see teams pushing the boundaries a little bit to try to get the excitement going in their cities.
And they always talk about how do we get the young fans in there. And, I heard some of the older fans say, well, Snoop Dogg, they did it last year with 50 Cent, but it worked. It filled the lower bowl. It's going to work again this year. Like you said, he's an international star. Everyone knows Snoop Dogg. He's best friends with Martha Stewart, and he's appearing on the Olympics, and he does it all. And I think if they chose right, and I think here in Calgary, the combination of the game being played during Stampede, which we've never seen, everybody's coming to Calgary to see and do different things. I think that adds another item to the menu. And then you add Bret Michaels. I can't think of a more genius move than what the Stampeders did.
Yeah,
you see this today, the CFL trending in the right direction. It makes me excited for the upcoming season. The fact that training camps opened and the fact that we're talking football makes me excited. Again, we could talk about it all day, but like you said, we probably should take a break. Guys, again, follow us on all our socials at Chevy and Nasty, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, X. And again, you can catch the audio on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Just download it the next day. Tell a friend, hit the like, hit the share, leave us a comment. And we love interacting with you guys. We'll take a quick break. As Sheldon says, have a pee, have a drink. We'll come back to wrap this thing up in style.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
Welcome back. It's The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Chev, I want to get your take on this. So Pete Rose this week, it's announced that posthumously, I think I said that right, he will be granted status in the Hall of Fame. What's your take on that? Is this a feeling of relief? We knew it would happen. Where do you fall out on this one?
Yeah, I guess he's going to be on the ballot, and some people are hoping he's the first balloter. I don't know. It's hard. This whole gambling on sports thing. Obviously, he did it back in the day, and he gambled. I believe the story is, I don't know the full story, but he gambled on his own team, which is probably better than betting against your team, because then you could lose it. But again, whatever the situation was, he was banned for a long time. Do I think they should have lifted it later in his life so he could actually? It almost is a slap in the face. As Trey says, he bet on his own team to win.
He bet on his own team, and there's a lot of guys that have done a lot of worse things in all major leagues, including domestic violence, including being tied into murders and assaults, I guess. OJ is probably the worst of the bunch, but there's been a lot of guys that have done things up to that point that are still in the Hall of Fame or still considered greats. If I was his family, I would be tempted to say at this point, no thanks.
Well, and I think
bigger than can he be bigger than the Baseball Hall of Fame with a movie coming out about that? I mean, I think a power move here would be just say, no, we're good. Thanks.
Yeah. And I think,
guys, baseball doesn't deserve Pete Rose at this point.
Yeah, I think he said that he wouldn't accept it if he was posthumously. Like if they didn't do it while he was alive, it did him no good. And yeah, I see. It's just a sad thing because you mentioned it. They'll put murderers and rapists in the Hall of Fame because their off-field antics um, don't clash with the quote unquote integrity of the game. But
Bet on
they're making the argument that his did. And we talk about this, we talked about CFL, my buddy Sean Lemon. I don't know the details of what went on, but he's not allowed to play football again, and he's one of the greatest players in the CFL. He may never be eligible because of his gambling thing. And the more and more, I guess I'm more forgivable to what Pete Rose did because he bet on himself. It wasn't found out that he fixed the game and he basically dogged it so that his team would lose.
Yeah.
He bet on his team to win, which meant he went out there and played his best. So there's kind of there's almost some valor to that in my eyes. And they punished him for betting on himself. And then these days, if this were to take place in modern days, it's almost like I see this as the whole punishment with Sean Lemon and stuff. Yeah, he made a bad mistake, but to ban a guy for life, shame on you when you've got patches of all these betting companies all over your shoulders and stuff, and they probably do nothing to educate those players as to why they shouldn't be doing that. There's and it's not just the CFL. Probably a lot of those sports just assume guys know, well, you shouldn't bet on sports. I know when I was in the NFL, they kind of talked about it in the terms of, if you're approached by bookies and all this and that, don't give them any information because they use anything you talk. Like if you go talk to a bookie.
I'm guessing they made a big deal of that though. Cause even in NCAA, that was a big thing. Like we got that.
Yeah, it was a big deal. But what I'm saying is now it's so intertwined with the culture. It's kind of like saying, Connor McDavid, healthiest athlete in the world, yet he does commercials for McDonald's. There's something wrong with that. And then you got all these young hockey players eating McDonald's because they think Connor McDavid does. The whole gambling and intersectionality with sports, something seems off there. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I'm not saying, there's no way to do it, but you don't have athletes doing smoking commercials. They don't even do beer commercials, but they'll do gambling commercials. And that's the one that can get you banned from the Hall of Fame. But you could drink and drive and kill someone and be in the NHL Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
But you bet on sports and you're banned. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so there's something wrong there. I don't know what the cure is, but definitely I think with Pete Rose, to have it overturned, it's deserved, but a little bit too late. I think they could have done it.
And I didn't realize that he said he wouldn't accept it, but they probably will at the end of the day because of what a great honor, and it's probably meaningful to the family to have it. But I would love the power move just to say no thanks.
Yeah, fair enough. Sheldon, let's wrap this up. We got to do studs and duds because we do it every week. Trey, hit it.
Studs and duds.
You got a stud this week for me?
God, I wish I was there. Apparently, in the past week at Virginia Tech University, Metallica performed an outdoor concert, and during Enter Sandman, there was so much ruckus. There was so much movement from the crowd that it actually registered on the seismograph. Now, it wasn't a big enough of an impact to make it even a one on the Richter scale, but it did measure. And, for me, if I go crash into a guy and I tackle him, I don't need it to be a 3 on the Richter scale. I just need to see the Richter scale go do this. Boop. And so good. As old as these guys are, I mean, they've been jamming since late 70s, early 80s, and they are still bringing out the crowds and the kids in every city that they play. Good on Metallica. I wish I was there.
Yeah, I'd like to go see them live again. They are pretty awesome. My stud this week is going to be young Calgary Stampeder, Jason Janvier Messier from Quebec. Jason, we wish him luck this week. He's a young defensive lineman from York University by way of Quebec, as I mentioned. He actually spent the last 3 months coaching with the Calgary Mavericks Spring League, the coach that I coach with. So he was team I coach with. He coached with me, the defensive line. And why he's a stud is because for as long as I ever played pro football, very, very hard to get the young guys out to coach in the community. Maybe once in a while,
especially consistently. So he's been there through the entire season. Good on
been
him.
there the entire season, coaching up the D line. Even times when I couldn't show up because I had conflicts in schedule, he was there. The kids loved him. He was such a great positive influence, such a good young guy. He had a tough break. He was drafted last year, tore his Achilles, so didn't really get to play. So this really becomes like his rookie year. So a stud for coming out and influencing all those young guys, those young men, mentoring them, showing them the importance of giving back. And I hope he has a great camp and fully recovered so that he can make that opening day roster, because I think that's a real special moment for a young athlete. So Jason, good luck, buddy. Duds, you gonna hit the duds first?
Yeah, I'll hit my dud. This one is a former, we get into the whole Western pride, civil liberties. We should be allowed to do what we need to do. There's a very unfortunate case that was brought to my attention by a Facebook influencer named Big Bear, who's like, he's half Cree, half white, his family, but he's still real ties to the Native community and a real heart for people doing what they are meant to do. In BC, there's this rancher that ranches ostriches. Mm-hmm. He's got hundreds of them. Now, government stepped in after doing some studies and realized that there was a duck that landed in a pond in November that had H1N1. And they came out and said, well, we have to kill off the entire flock. And this poor rancher is like, and there's 600 that were supposed to be called off. And the rancher is like, we do not have a single case of the virus within our flock. Doesn't matter. The rules say that if we have an infected duck on your land, the whole herd has to go. And this went to court after the judges ruled that they had to call the entire herd. They got a stay of execution a couple of weeks ago. I've been following this kind of softly from behind. But earlier today, the court ruled finally that no, all 600 ostriches have to be killed off. And I hate seeing. I get it if you've got sickness in the herd to protect your bloodlines and safety for people and all that stuff. But when you don't have a single instance in your herd and you have to kill off 600 animals, to me, dude, this is the reason why I want to see smaller government, more common sense principles. And not to mention, I'm sure there's insurance here, but it's going to be devastating for these ranchers. Not to mention every other rancher around them saying, we lost this battle. When the government comes in and says your herd has to die, there's nothing you can do. It's sad.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I don't know the science behind it. There's probably is some science behind it that would back that, but yeah, it seems a bit of an extreme
I agree. If the science is here, if you've got cases of the virus in your herd, great. But if you don't, come on, guys. After 6 months, man.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. My dad, it makes it 2 weeks in a row. Donald Trump accepting an airplane from the Qatari government. It stinks. It stinks. It's I'm a city employee. I can't even accept the $5 Tim Hortons gift card because it reeks of conflict of interest and lack of professionalism, lack of so many different things that you represent when you work for the government. And accepting a gift of a brand new airplane from a foreign government, it just reeks of foreign interference. But of course,
is it a new Air Force One, or what was the plane that they received?
Well, it's a brand new I don't know what the company is, but a brand new airplane.
Is it a gift to the government, or is it a gift to Trump?
So it's a gift to Trump to be used as Air Force One, and then once he is no longer president, it gets remitted to the Donald Trump Library, which I believe is the foundation that becomes his personal use vehicle for the rest of his life.
Then it's all fine. He's not getting any personal benefit out of it. Here's the one thing. There's a lot of fishy things that are going on, but I will point this one. I will stand up for El Trumpo on this one.
Oh my God. I knew you would.
No, not on this issue, but if you take a look at what's going on in the States right now, the stock market has recovered from their, what did they call it? The Victory Day or whatever, when he first launched the tariffs. Everybody was panicking, but
Liberty Day
slowly starting to get back to normal. Then everybody was all up in arms about the Trump's eggs are more expensive than ever in history. Inflation is now officially down at a record pace from what it's been over the last 6 years. It's starting to work. Canada's working out a deal. They're going to announce something. China came to the table. The world's getting back to normal, and the Saudis are giving him a jet that he doesn't get to keep. Right.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, I still
like
have faith that the world's going to settle down, and next thing you know, we're going to get serious with Russia and Ukraine, and we're going to start putting that one to bed as well. More has happened in the last 110 days than we've seen happen in the last 10 years.
Yeah. He also said that he negotiated a ceasefire between Pakistan and India, and they both got up and said, we didn't even speak to this guy.
It was the best peace deal ever.
It was the best peace deal ever.
Yeah.
And then I guess there was some news, how he's been, he obviously he had his little nicknames for people, and Sleepy Joe was one of them. But I guess they caught him in Saudi Arabia sleeping in a government function this year, and it was that exaggerated blink, where he closed his eyes, and it was probably a solid 10 count before they opened again.
Was there a nod? Like, was there?
No, there was no nod. He had good posture, but he definitely looked like he was out dreaming of Melania.
Listen, the man has been busy, and the world is changing, and we're gonna have to wait probably another 100 days before things totally go back to normal. But I'm predicting good things.
Yeah. Well, you guys won't have to wait another 100 days for us. We're gonna be back next week. Tuesday night again. Our men's mental health movie night is coming up next Thursday. Let's give it a plug at the Cochrane Movie House. We got a ton of sponsors, ton of prizes, ton of food, ton of fun. If you didn't get in, you could still get on a wait list in case some tickets turn up. But right now we are sold out. We're happy to say we're sold out. As you said, Sheldon, it's a movement, and it's growing bigger, it's growing stronger, and we want to thank everyone involved. I think we're gonna especially point out our good friend Daryl McAvina and his company, Performance Freight Management. It's the engine, the heart, and the soul behind this, and we're just trying to, help him out and turn it into a good night. So we're looking forward to seeing you next Tuesday on the show, and then we're looking forward to seeing you guys in person. And between then and there, at Chevy and Nasty on all our socials and on the podcast channels that you find. I'm Chevy. He's Nasty. It was a great show. Sheldon, thanks for being there. Trey, thanks for producing. It was seamless today. Thanks to all you guys for showing up. And we'll see you next week on The Ride.